Hey everybody, thanks for joining today's webinar. It is the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started, even though I think people are still coming in, but thanks for being on time. Today's webinar is File Transfer on IBM, Secure, Automate, and Simplify Without Disruption. We have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. A couple of introductions. My name is Connor Roach. I will be your host today. I'm the Marketing Campaign Manager on our MFT team here at Fortra. I've been with Fortra for a little bit over 7 years now. I actually started on our Power team on our robot and SQL products specifically. So I have some awareness of this area. Our presenters for today's presentation are Rick Elliott and Heath Cass. Rick Elliott is a longtime GoAnywhere expert from our own internal professional services team. And was even a customer back in the day, actually, before that. Heath is with Fortra for almost 24 years, and he's a long-term specialist with GoAnywhere and has worked for customers and does webinars for us, demos, trials. He also has a strong background in IBM, supporting most, if not all, of the original robot solutions for IBM, and also actually worked for IBM in Rochester for over 11 years. So we got some good people to present today's presentation. Moving ahead here, as I mentioned, we have a full agenda. We'll start with a quick polling question, move into a couple of different sections about the different aspects and considerations of file transfer on IBM, have a short demo, and then as time permits, we'll wrap up with a Q&A. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping things at the top here. Do submit your questions at any time over the course of today's presentation. If we can answer them in the moment, we can. But if we can't, we'll try to answer what we can during that Q&A section at the end of the presentation. But if there's anything that we're unable to address live during the presentation today, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the fact to get answers to you. So do use that question submission form to get those to us. In addition to that, today's session is being recorded, so you will receive a recording of the presentation by email after the fact, so keep an eye out for that, and then we'll include some other kind of helpful resources. And then finally, just a heads up that you'll receive a survey prompt when the presentation wraps up. Do encourage you to complete that. It allows you to just give us some feedback, let you know, let us know how you think we did. If there's anything that you want to see us cover in future webinars, things along those lines. So appreciate the time that you take to complete that. It's only a minute or two. It's pretty short. Moving ahead here, I did want to share the results of a he's getting the call. He's a popular guy.
Have you done this before, Heath?
Nope. Only like the 100th, maybe 1,000th webinar you've done for us. Yeah, I did want to share the results of a registration question that we asked here. So just to give you an idea of who we have in the audience today. And that question was, what is your current method for transferring files on the IBM? Majority of you answered that you are using IBM native FTP, SFTP. Heath, looking at these results, what kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious what stands out here, and this is what both Rick and I have seen over the years. We both have an IBM background. It is right. We're all used to that native IBM and just running things right there in the command line. So we've been using this older technology to do these file transfers. It really leads to multiple transfer challenges, to be honest, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today.
Excellent.
I agree totally. I mean, this is one of those things that being there before and having to go in and create an RPG program or a CL and being able to build that into my process that I'm worried about the communication, it basically would pull my mental thoughts and my process away from actually the data. What am I actually needing to get in and out of my system? And in that way, if I actually could focus on one or the other, it made it easier to manage. And so pulling this into an MFT solution like GoAnywhere was the best solution that I had at that time. So absolutely agree that that is something that needs to be reviewed.
Great. All right, and then before we get into the meat of today's presentation, we did want to just get a little bit more information from you, which is this polling question here, which is what are your biggest challenges with IBM file transfers today? It is a checkbox question, so if there's a couple of things that that stand out to you, go ahead and select those. But we'll give you a couple of moments here to go ahead and answer. And those options are manual processes, lack of automation, visibility and audit logging, managing trading partners or integrations, reliability, failed or missed transfers, and key management. All right, we're coming up on 1 minute and I'll close this out. Thanks everyone for answering here. All right, there we go.
Excellent. I'm not sure if the results will come up. Oh, they're there. Awesome. Cool. Just want to make sure. So yeah, it's exactly it, right? The manual process of the automation, it's tough. I mean, I've been there. We've been there. If you're doing things manually, this is my story. If you do things manually, if I'm in the office, does Rick know how to do it? Does he have the time to do it? I'll put it that way, right? There's a lot of challenges around that. Plus the visibility, the auditing, the logging. So again, really great. That's kind of what we expected, at least what I expected for the results. Anything else you want to add to that, Rick?
Yeah, normally that's followed up by the person who has to do it goes on vacation or maternity leave or something happens. Then you have people scrambling to get things done or not doing it. And it can become a business deterrent that you want to make sure that things happen and get that notification in play to get that automation going. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, thank you for that. It does help us out to understand where you're at and what your challenges are. So we do, again, really appreciate that. So we'll get this thing started here. We do have a lot to cover. I'll kind of keep it short and sweet for the most part. This one here is just really think about what types of file changes do you need? Or what are you trying to do today? Are you trying to transfer files server to server? Or is it really more person to person? Or is there a mix, right? Maybe it's server to a person or person to a server, right? It goes a lot of different ways. Those are some of the things that you really got to think about what you're doing today around your file transfers, your needs, but also your clients, your vendors, your partners, right? What do they require you to do? Talking about the different transfer challenges. Again, appreciate those that you guys mentioned earlier here. So I got 4 things I want to run you through here today. The first one is just talk about the human error, right? First of all, human error is a big problem. Unfortunately, it does happen, right? Many companies are still using the native commands, or building those programs, as Rick described earlier, to transfer those files. It's a really long, tedious manual process, and it is prone to human errors. It's all it is. Then, for instance, also, what if the user sends the wrong file or forgets to send the file, sends it at the wrong time? This all could be a very important file document or financial document, and any delay could really affect your relationship with your vendor or your customer. What if the user downloads or uploads the file to the wrong trading partner? Maybe they accidentally sent the wrong pricing list with special discounts that were actually intended for another customer. This all could be good, very bad for your business. What if the file contains sensitive data and the user forgets to encrypt it before the transmission? Another thought, who's going to run those manual transfers, as I described earlier, if that primary user is gone? Maybe it is for on vacation, right? Who has the time, the knowledge to do it? And the last one there is, the users, what I see out there, what we see is that they really don't know how to do the transfers. What's the best solution? What can they use, right? They just have no idea. They lack the skills or just the knowledge. So these are some of the, many of the different challenges and risks you may face today with those manual file transfers. Secondly, a lot of IT departments have a lot of inefficiencies with their file transfers. That is, maybe they're using the unsecured technology like FTP, or use traditional email even to transmit those files. The third one there is to, to automate the file transfers. A lot of companies have built those FTP scripts on their systems. However, those scripts have many downfalls. And one big problem with those is that your trading partner passwords could be actually stored in the clear. You can actually see it, which can then actually make those servers very vulnerable to attacks if hackers by chance get a hold of them. To write those scripts properly, the programmer should be able to code or include those scripts, but may not, right? It's too much work. So have they actually included the automatic retry or self-connections? Can they send out alerts if there's something going wrong or if the user doesn't get their file? Or just write out a really good audit detailed trail of the file transfers, what was delivered, where it came from, where it went to, etc. Plus, every time something changes, maybe the IP address for the trading partner server has changed, or maybe the password or the file name changes. A programmer has to get involved to make those changes within their scripts, within their programs. These are additional costs, and they can really add up over time and distract your expensive IT resources from really focusing on the priority projects. We have talked to a lot of organizations that have hundreds, even thousands of FTP scripts that have really become unmanageable and almost impossible to maintain over time. Third challenge is the lack of encryption, the data at rest and in motion. Another problem, with file transfer today for a lot of organizations is that they may have an end-to-end user or end user, that jeopardizes the sensitive data by downloading it first from a secure corporate server, but then they download to a less secure PC or a laptop, making the data much more vulnerable to attacks. Maybe, for instance, the user has downloaded an ACH file from the server before they use their PC tool to send it to the bank. In that instance, the user may forget to remove the file from the PC after they transmit it. And since PCs and laptops are often more vulnerable to those back-end servers, the file could be attacked again by that would-be hacker. Email is also frequently used to send sensitive data. When user sends a file as a regular attachment in an email, that attachment is not encrypted by default, which makes it very susceptible to theft. The users, they also have their own free file sharing service. Maybe it's like Dropbox that they're using to send files through without using any kind of controls or audit trails. This has really become a nightmare for IT departments, right? They're not using anything consistent across the teams and all that, and they're not secure. And the last one there, without having any good internal policies in place for your end users, regarding your file transfers, you really do increase the loss or risk of handling sensitive data through one of those unsecure methods. The fourth challenge is the lack of being informed, no error alerts, and maybe no auditing capability. This is another big challenge with file transfers today. We have seen that, many scripts, applications, PC tools, they're all using all these different things here, but they don't have a good way to send out alerts when a transfer fails. Sometimes you may have to wait for your trading partner to call you and alert you that they never received the file that they should have. Now it's too late, right? Maybe it's a big impact. Plus, with these legacy tools, there's often no logs of what and where the files were sent. Now, this is a real issue with auditors, since many organizations cannot tell or prove what sensitive files are leaving the organization. For instance, can you quickly tell what files have left your network on a given date or time period, and by which users? Because of these vulnerabilities and the lack of reporting, the lack of logging that is needed, it's really difficult to meet those stricter compliance requirements using those traditional tools and processes. All right, so next one here, I want to hand things over to Rick to talk about some of the different transfers in the automation.
At this point, what you're looking at is just building in the automation to GoAnywhere and taking that away from the developers having to actually put that together for you. Your administrator basically is the one that integrates directly with your business units. He's the one that knows, hey, I've got a schedule I got to meet, or I got to wait when a file shows up in this folder, pick it up and send it out the door. I need to communicate or set up the communications with JP Morgan Chase or some other external banking system or transfer partner. Those are easier to hand off to an administrator than to sit there and spend the time having a developer design and build that out. The beauty about GoAnywhere is that it allows you to actually draw that line in the middle. I can have my developers still depend on what it is they do best. Take data and manipulate it into my business units and manage what needs to go in and out of my system, whether that's directly into the DB2 tables or executing RPG or CL programs to process data, orders, transfers, communications, whatever needs to happen within my business units. At this point, you're able to go back and actually automate that. The beauty about GoAnywhere is that it does give you that seamless integration into the IBM world. Your work job schedule entries, your CL communication, your DB2 tables, your RPG programs, all can be seamlessly integrated within GoAnywhere. Meaning we can actually build in a scheduler within GoAnywhere that triggers and moves data, or you can use the work job schedule entry, or you could even use Robot, or you could use any other scheduling process or direct call. Your file monitoring, you have access to the current APIs, REST as well as SOAP, your cloud connectors if you want to get into Jira, or if you want to get into ServiceNow, or any of the other major players when it comes to cloud connectors, SharePoint, Online, Microsoft, Google Cloud connectors, Jeeves. I mean, there's a ton of things out there that different companies use on a daily basis to manage their data movements. But just because you're on an IBM doesn't mean you can't get that direct integration to those systems and those integrations. One of the biggest things that I think is kind of like sliced butter coming into GoAnywhere is the secure forms. This does give you an integrated tool for interactive data movement. That means I can get a secure communication into my system from a web browser. That user could be public, meaning I wanted to onboard new customers and trading partners and bring in information into my system, or it could be locked down and authenticated to where the user only gets access to give me information that they are required to give me, and it can be secured and encrypted at rest based on what Heath was telling you earlier about validating that data when we need to move it. And all of this can be triggered based on the receipt of the data, meaning I don't have to sit here and just monitor an inbound folder waiting for something to come in the door. I can actually trigger on the actual receipt of that data as it comes in. So now looking at this just kind of gives you a detail of how things can happen. Okay, GoAnywhere literally is just an automation. It's a scripting language that allows you to build and execute movement of data and processing of that data. So the workflows themselves basically are what admins tell you that you need to do, or a business unit tells you that you need to do. The only thing you don't have to have is a developer to go build it or put it into CL or put it into RPG. The commands are already there. And if you look at history, the original GoAnywhere, which was called Transfer Anywhere, was actually kind of modeled after the CL functionality. Give me a command, prompt it, and then give me the parameters to execute that command. It's exactly how GoAnywhere projects work. So if you're familiar with the CL functionality, then you should be very comfortable moving into the GoAnywhere projects and what they do for you. Thus opening up that ability to communicate with Windows and Linux and other IBMIs or the cloud or going into REST and SOAP. Those are all options for you moving into GoAnywhere directly to your IBMI. Secure Forms does give you that direct integration to a REST command as well. So you can actually, just by clicking on a checkbox, turn a secure form into a REST integrated communication. So now you're getting into the possibility of the back end of saying, hey, I've got something, it's available, I can run it, but now I'm able to trigger a robot job. I can trigger CL. I can trigger other items within my IBMI just because I received a file inbound. But then again, just like Heath is showing here on the screen, I can also manage and say, look, if I have any problems, maybe creating a physical file or doing a message, I can actually take care of that directly and integrated within GoAnywhere seamlessly, regardless of whether GoAnywhere is installed on your IBMI or whether it's on a Linux box or a Windows box out front. There's all possibilities here for that configuration. Go ahead, Eve. So in this case, let's look at the other side of that. What if you have things internal? Maybe you need to generate EDI documents and then you want to turn right around and send them out via AS2 or SFTP or communicate them via REST calls. Then I can actually execute commands that trigger GoAnywhere automation. That can be done from a CL command. It can be done from a GA command on a command line on a Windows or a shell command on a Linux box. I can trigger these transfers, these automations within GoAnywhere from pretty much any entity or any scheduler or command line. So GoAnywhere does play well with others and does give you a very powerful middleware piece to make that happen. And just as a side note, APIs can even trigger this as much as the command line interface. So you have all kinds of possibilities here. So in this case, what we want to show you is just kind of how you can go in and build out a scheduled job. Again, this isn't stopping you from using your work job schedule entry from an IBM screen, but within GoAnywhere, you kind of have the same thing that allows you to do that from within a single environment, a single user interface. So yes, you can go in and actually generate a automation, in this case, a schedule. You can do the same thing for a monitor. Run it, tell me when you want to run it. Are we going to use it during a holiday calendar? What happens if I run it on a holiday? Do I skip the holiday or do I actually do it the day before or the day after? What do I do if the job fails? Do I repeat? How often do I repeat? These are all things you can build into the notifications and the validations. The other piece is it also lets you provide parameters into these projects to execute them. That means you could actually have a universal project that sends and receives documents. The only difference is who you're sending it to and maybe what folder you're uploading it to. And those can be parameters that you can pass into that automation so that you don't have to build 100 projects for 100 people. You can build one and just pass parameters from a scheduled job for each individual, thus saving you a lot of time and effort for development. So in this case, you also have the option of building in monitors. Monitors allows me to look at a folder structure. That folder structure could be local on my IBMI in the IFS, and I'm looking to say if somebody or some internal process puts a CSV document or a file out there in the IFS, I can trigger a job that says, hey, go pick that up, encrypt it, and send it out the door to my trading partner. But conversely, I can also monitor an external location, like a bank, JP Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo or Mellon Bank, looking for ACH files that I need to go get and download and process. Or maybe I'm communicating with a trading partner that has documents that I need to bring in to provide shipping or send information or invoices. This means that every 60 seconds, every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, once a day, I'm looking for files in this particular folder. Maybe I'm looking for new ones. Maybe I'm just looking to see if it exists altogether. But this allows me to go in and actually trigger an automation as it's happening. That means that now I can look particular days of the week. I can actually pass parameters, just like we were talking about before. I can also turn right around and send notifications to let you know, hey, there's a problem. But one of the best features about this in the upper right-hand corner right here is the ability to do what's called a secondary snapshot. That secondary snapshot allows me to get as close as possible to guaranteeing that I'm getting all my data. How long does it take to put data into that folder? Well, if I run a scheduled job, or if you just run a project and say, go get the file and move it, you don't know if it's finished being uploaded or that all the data is complete. What the secondary snapshot does is it basically says, hey, I found a file that matches the pattern of the files that I'm looking for, but I'm gonna wait 10 seconds or 12 seconds, and I'm gonna go back and check it again to see if it's updated. Has my timestamp updated? Has the file size updated? If it has, then I'm gonna skip it this time. I'll pick it up on the next iteration. In other words, I wanna make sure that that file change doesn't happen, which implies the fact that the file has finished being written to. So that does help in those situations. Heath.
I got a little delay here, try. Yeah, that's okay. There, cool. Of course, it just, yep, and that was she last one. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for the delay. There we go.
So at this point, one of the things you're going to need to pick into play, and most businesses are going to handle these days, is going to be getting into security and compliance. This is a major topic for pretty much all businesses across the board. With today's world and what we have to adhere to and look at and review, this basically gives you all the possibilities of handling that with an automation tool that handles that in the middle for you. Encryption at rest. I have to put data in an encrypted format locally on my own systems just to protect that data. Encryption during transit, meaning, am I using a secure protocol, SFTP or FTPS or HTTPS, AS2, AS3, AS4, or even PSIP? Does this channel provide security as it's moving the data from point A to point B? The updated FIPS requirements, meaning I can go into the FIPS 140-3 compliance now for NIST certified algorithms. So that has been updated from FIPS 140-2. And then are you performing integrated checks? Do I do checksums? Validate that all my data is there. Make sure that there's not something wrong with that digital fingerprint. Am I getting all my data from point A to point B and nothing being intercepted in the middle? You may think that these are really not that important and all that does is kind of slow things down a little bit. Okay, maybe in the grand scheme of things on a large file, you can notice a little bit of time being added to it because of the encryption. But what's more important? Are you worried more about losing your data or somebody getting access to your data that shouldn't be? Or how much time are you going to spend if someone does get access to that data? Or how much money is it going to cost your business if somebody gets access to that data without the encryption or the integrity of those checks? There are multiple things that you can do here as well. Multi-factor authentication. In other words, provide multiple login information. Give me an ID and a password, but also send me an ID. We all have to do it now when we sign into our banking apps and our retirement apps and things like this, that we want to verify that, hey, you are who you say you are. You also have the role-based access, meaning granular user permissions and administrative roles that you can access, as well as centralized key management. We can actually create a key management system that allows you to manage your PGP and SSH and SSL keys and certificates all in one place, instead of having to do it back and forth to the system keys and certificates and locations, and some in one folder and others are in a hidden folder or a dot folder under communications. All of that goes away and is managed from a single location that actually will even notify you before they get ready to expire. You know, it's the little things that make things better, right? This allows you to go through and physically say, hey, let me notify you that this PGP is going to be expiring within the next 30 days so that you can proactively get it updated and ready to go before it becomes an issue and you're losing data or money based on data not being encrypted correctly. Auditing and compliance stick into the play more than anything nowadays because everybody wants to audit everything. So now GoAnywhere does allow you to track all of your audit logs, whether it's communication, services, job execution, access, activity, movements. All of this is logged for you, and it is put into a tamper-resistant log. So that is available to you to know that that information is there and telling you what exactly happened. This also provides access to analyzing and getting into the PCI DSS compliancy that is built in to GoAnywhere. Matter of fact, we do have a reporting functionality that compares your environment against the PCI DSS compliance to even allow you to review what am I meeting and what am I exceeding and what am I falling behind on with my system installation. In other words, did I go into an administrator or root and change the actual original passwords or even disable those accounts so that we don't have a generic access that has full access to everything in my system? These are all little things that your system needs to control and manage to make sure your business stays compliant and secure. And the last things listed here is BAM. Okay, BAM is short for Business Activity Monitoring. This allows you to create dashboards and monitoring tools for real-time visibility, meaning you could actually create a dashboard that actually says, here, let me see what my movements are today. Where am I having issues? Let me drill down into those situations and see where I'm having problems or see where things are going well. What are my limits? What are my transfers? What are my control values that I need to manage my system and know that I'm staying on top of things without having to go spend a lot of technical time getting into that? This is more from a business level or a business unit level where upper management can actually monitor what's going on within your system. Your network and security automation. In other words, communication in the real world does have problems. If you stop and think about it, that's why we have the internal firewalls, the external firewalls, the private networks, the public networks, the internal IPs, the external IPs. There's all kinds of things that come into play that you have to navigate when you're communicating with the outside world. GoAnywhere does provide a secure DMZ gateway that allows you to provide a no inbound firewall access to your system. That means you can't hack through a firewall that doesn't exist. So if there's no hole in the firewall, it's hard to get through that particular firewall. And that allows this to happen. MFT controls the DMZ gateway from the inside out, not from the outside in. But when you actually drop off a file or you move data, it's literally dropped behind that back-end firewall in your private network because of security. Because you have provided the credentials necessary to allow you access into that system before you upload or download a file into that system. That means nothing is exposed to the DMZ. You don't have to connect outbound to go get it and bring it back in. So in other words, you don't have to double dip in those instances. And there's an immediate trigger of data being moved into your system, scanning using ClearSwift or an ICAP server that actually scans documents and keep that sensitivity happening as well as the security happening behind the internal firewalls. So in this case, it allows you to create that workflow governance, meaning you're controlling the manual processes and don't allow that internal process. A lot of companies I've worked with, and I know, Heath, you've run into this as much as I have, they still have FileZilla on individual laptops where some people will send data from their HR department to ADP. And that's just what they do. They don't know who's doing it, when they're doing it, or how they're doing it. They just know that Susie in accounting sends this document once a week. Well, things like that, you need to govern those situations. Build them into a scripting that's automated, that controlled, managed, and adapt that to your current situation so that you know what's happening in your business and know that data is being moved on time and securely as necessary. And the last, there's the adaptive security. In other words, yes, you're going to get hacked. People are going to try to scan your ports. People are going to try to get access to your system. GoAnywhere does have an automatic IP blocking. It does have antivirus scanning. You do have ICAP. You have possibilities of going in and identifying, utilizing threat brains and validating IP addresses that are malicious in intent. I mean, look at it this way. If somebody's trying to sign on as a web user to your system as the name admin or root, you know they're not trying to do you any favors. So why not go ahead and just have a system that will take care of that immediately, block the IP, stop them from getting access to your system until they use a valid user ID and a password, or permanently just block it if you feel like that is your business need. All possibilities within the GoAnywhere realm, and not necessarily needing a developer to make all that happen. You could just do that from an administrative perspective.
Excellent. All right, I believe I got the next section here, Rick. That's great. I mean, there's a lot you can do with GoAnywhere that can help strengthen, your security and help you meet those compliances, right, or exceed them even. So there's a lot there, and it's all kind of built in. It really is built into GoAnywhere. But I'm sure you guys are all really curious, how GoAnywhere fits within the IBM platform. How GoAnywhere can integrate with the IBM and help you with all those secure file transfers. So that's what we're going to do next year. I do have a live demo come up after this, so please stick around yet for that if you are. But jumping in here, GoAnywhere is a solution that can be installed in minutes on the OS. It really can. It can be on-prem, it could be in your cloud, it could be even hosted. If you want us to host it as a software as a service, we can do that. There's a lot of options there, and it gives you that flexibility. And when I say you can install in minutes, you can download the software, install it, and typically have it up running less than 10 minutes. It is really that quick and simple. GoAnywhere offers the encryption at rest, as Rick mentioned, with OpenPGP and GPG encryption and AES 256-bit encryption. Compresses and decompresses files using zip with AES standard if needed, and secure transfer protocols like using secure FTP, secure copy, FTPS, AES2, 3, and 4. Right, there's a lot of options there. We're going to talk about the automation using the built-in scheduler, the file monitor or a file watch, if you will. A lot of customers call it a file watcher. You got triggers, which is off of user events, API calls, and more. And then GoAnywhere also has tools to help you be compliant, offering strong encryption algorithms, ciphers, logging of users' actions, auditing, and more. So my question now for you guys here, just to get you really thinking, what are your needs? That is, what do you need to do to share files? And who with, right? Is it other banks, vendors, partners, customers, or maybe it's internally? And then besides the who, how do they want those files shared with them? They may have certain protocols. They may have certain ciphers, algorithms, all that they require, right? These are different things you have to put into considerations. If any or if all of this is true to you, GoAnywhere can assist you with that. Taking a closer look, this is like 10,000-foot overview of GoAnywhere because GoAnywhere can do so much, right? GoAnywhere is that managed file transfer solution that can be installed, a single solution that can be installed, that gives you the ability to be the client, which is more or less on the left-hand side here. Client meaning that you're initiating the file transfers. You're doing the pushing, the pulling of files, encryption, decryption, renaming files, maybe some lightweight ETL where you can actually extract data from a certain document type, modify that data, write it back out to the same type or different type, or to a table. You have a lot of options there. We hit the automation, the scheduler, the monitoring. There's even options for file acceleration where GoAnywhere can actually use UDP to help accelerate those file transfers if needed. Typically, you talk about large files or large volume files. But then you got the server side here on the right-hand side. And the server side is really allowing users to access your server securely, which I'll talk a little more about here too as well. But allow them to access your server, give them certain access that is to certain folders only, and you could define their permissions. What can they do in that folder? Can they only upload? Can they list and download, delete, rename, etc.? Right? You're in control, always in control of what they can see and do. You got file syncing, sharing, you got those custom secure forms, like Rick mentioned that earlier. I'll try to show you one here today. Just one thing you can do with them. There's so many things you can do with secure forms. It's a utility tool. It really is. It's a utility tool for the end users to empower them, to give them some more control without really giving them personal permissions to it anyway. We got secure email, a great way to share large files securely. Files never actually go through your SMTP server. Long story short, those files are transferred via HTTPS, a secure protocol, and a lot of security built in behind it. Triggers, that's the event, the way to react. Different authentications for your users. We have a lot of different options there. You can mix and match as you guys need to. If it's LDAP, AD, multi-factor, SAML, Okta, Entra ID, the IBM, you can also use that as well. You can accept those service level agreements, those SLAs. If a file doesn't arrive or a project doesn't run, a job doesn't run on time, you can react to it. There's a lot you can do. A simple notification or kick off a different process, it's up to you. It's really customizable. We hit alerts, we hit auditing logs a few times already. So a lot of things you can do there. On the bottom there, it's just some indications, really what you can do with these agents and different platforms you can access. I have another slide for it as well, diving a little bit deeper into agents. But as Rick mentioned, you have the ability to reach into other locations, no matter really where GoAnywhere is installed, based on, of course, requirements and all that. But it could be other platforms or Windows, Linux. You got your file services, your cloud, databases, SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, Postgres. And we already talked about applications. Just very briefly, I'm going to bring this in here today. I'm not too much going to go too deep here, but scanning those files for viruses, active malware is probably the #1 thing that we integrate with that we recommend. It's an ICAP solution or server that GoAnywhere can actually connect up with and use seamlessly. That is, here's an example. You're pulling a file from a remote server, or a customer, vendors upload a file to your server. Instantly scannable for viruses or active malware. Again, another layer of protection. Protect your data, protect your environment. Block out those emails, throw them to a quarantine folder, whatever you want to do, but either way, you're scanning those files ahead of time. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into agents because the agents do come into play a lot of times with a lot of IBM customers that I've worked with. A large bank, they actually have like 4 or 5 main IBM servers, and then each server has probably around 10 partitions. So yes, they're on the larger side there. But what it is, those 4 or 5 main servers, they had GoAnywhere installed, and then of those partitions, they had agents installed. Basically, they're controlling, defining how they communicate. Those agent servers do not allow any inbound connectivity. It's a remote server to GoAnywhere. And these agents, if you look at these arrows, we do this here, agents actually make an outbound connection. So no matter where you install GoAnywhere, if it is on the IBM, if it's in a Windows or Linux server, agents make an outbound connection to it. So you don't have to poke any holes in their firewall. You don't have to allow any inbound. Those agents could be on that IBM, it could have a partition, it could be on a Linux or Windows server, etc. With that communication, overnight secure ETL communication prior to us, GoAnywhere is able to really push and pull files to those remote servers through the agent. Agents actually are kind of a headless version of GoAnywhere, lightweight. There's things you can do over there. You can actually offload some of the work. Those agent servers, let's say that remote IBM can do its own work, transfer files, push files around locally to it without actually impacting the MFT server itself. There's a lot of things you can do with agents. very commonly used out there. Here I'm going to dive a little bit deeper, so I try to help explain a little more about really keeping yourself secure, right? A lot of shops, and I recommend this, do not allow any external connections to the IBM, right? I don't recommend it. Well, Rick and I don't recommend it. And really what it comes down to is right down below here. So if you look closely here, you have GoAnywhere installed behind your firewall. If it is an IBM or if it's a Linux or Windows, whatever it might be, it's behind the firewall. With this here, you do not have to open up any inbound ports to allow users to share files with you, all right? So key thing here is to your left, you got GoAnywhere Gateway. Now this would be installed on a DMZ server. This DMZ server could be a Linux or Windows server that is external facing. So you do allow users that cannot using certain ports. Probably more the obvious ones with defaults like secure FTP with port 22. The gateway itself connected as a two-way proxy, so both forward and reverse are supported, meaning that users coming in will do some mapping that way to the backend database, magically a little bit that way, but also GoAnywhere can actually connect to your external partners, routing through the gateway, through the DMZ that is, keeping your private network private. And a big thing here too, no files, no security credentials are stored within the DMZ server. Again, this is an area where users are connecting up to. We don't want things sitting there that they potentially could grab, right? So again, they're not there. We don't recommend it. And long story short, you can kind of see the green arrows. GoAnywhere actually opens up what we call an outbound egress channel, a listening channel, right? It's listening. It's waiting for these users to come in. It could be yourself. It could be your colleagues, but your customers, trading partners, etc. They're going to come into that DMZ server if they're using HTTPS or web client over maybe port 443, or as I mentioned, secure FTP with port 22. We're going to validate their credentials over that existing channel. We're going to make sure they're a registered user, the profile password, maybe that SSH key, etc. If all looks really good there, long story short, we're going to open up an outbound data channel connecting to that user. So now that user coming in, again, magically will be able to access a folder that is set up for them, that you allow them access, and based on the permissions, what they can do. Again, can they list and download, etc. But as a reminder, you never had to open up any of those inbound ports. You never had to change or break that firewall you have out there, right? It stays contact, as Rick was saying earlier too. Don't open that up if you don't have to have that. So again, this is something we strongly recommend to our users. Moving on here, just talking about our server connectivity, just a little bit deeper into that integration. GoAnywhere has the capability to share files with multiple file systems, from SMB, IFS, S3 buckets, Azure Blob Storage, connect to a database, allowing you to automatically, say, query a table, modify those records, write to a document, encrypt that document, and then transfer it as needed, where needed, etc. Emailing, messaging, using different protocols. You define exactly what users can use. As I mentioned earlier, GoAnywhere does support UDP type file transfer for file acceleration. You can connect to different websites. Again, there's a lot of capability with GoAnywhere, and it will, I'll say, make your life easier as an administrator, and also give the users the ability to do things they need to do. All right, let me jump into a live demonstration for you guys here. We got about 10 minutes left for the webinar, so let me get into really quickly here. Okay, so first things first right now, this is the point of view of an administrator, GoAnywhere admin. This is installed on an IBM. It's actually our Academy server. If any of you have done demos for different products we have here, this is Academy. But this is an IBM, and it's installed. If I jump over here, this is Windows server. It really has the same look and feel. Both servers, both environments, I can actually access the IBM. It's that easy. But I'll jump back right now initially. So I'm back on the IBM just to show you a few things and again, keep things short and sweet here today. With GoAnywhere admin here, we have a lot of things you can set up. We've been talking heavily around really system environment, security, being notified. There's a lot you can do. Rick even mentioned about IP blocking. We can automatically block IPs coming in. You can set up system alerts if things are changing. I think even Rick even mentioned about being notified if a PGP key expires ahead of time, right? So you can actually define how many days to be notified, so you have the ability to actually go out there and rebuild those keys before they become a problem. Security settings, you can actually enable FIPS 140-3 and a lot more. The built-in key vault, this area where you can manage your keys. Again, this is right here on the IBM. I'm just using a browser to do all this, right? Very simple, very easy to use. And you got your certs, your SSH and PGP keys, and then within here, you can start managing them. That is, you can create brand new key pairs, define the strengths and algorithms, import existing keys. So maybe you need to import that public key from your partner to use to encrypt their file before you deliver to them, because they have that private key. Reporting, up here, resources. GoAnywhere has the capability to connect up to a lot of different endpoints. We've hit on quite a few here today, your S3 buckets, Azure Blob Storage, the cloud connectors, different web service applications out there, database servers. Again, if it could be your DB2, it could be SQL servers, Snowflake, etc. Going down a little bit here, getting a lot of different ones, the ICAP server for scanning for files, network shares. These are different endpoints that can be defined, SOAP and REST, and of course, like Security. It's probably the most common protocol being used out there. And what's really nice here, you come in here and very quickly you can create and define these connections. Type in that IP address or the DNS name, the port that they're listing on, the profile password, things that you're probably using today inside of a script, but everything here is protected, it's encrypted. Profile password, maybe they require an SSH key and all that. You can do that. You can actually select your SSH key and so forth right from there. And you can even test this connection. So really quick, blue is good. And there's different things you can set up as well. But again, you can create or define these connections that you can actually use in that sense of automation. So that'd be step number one, create those resources. Then we got workflows where you can create those projects, create that step-by-step flow, which I'll show you in a little bit. Scheduling, Rick hit all this up for you. Scheduling, the built-in scheduler, a lot of options there, monitoring, triggers. We even have the ability to create your own job queues and manage jobs within GoAnywhere. Make them single-threaded or which jobs have higher priority, right? There's different things you can do in here to help you out. But let me do this projects really quickly. All right, I got 3 different projects that are already created. And this is just a folder structure. Don't worry about that too much right now. But inside the webinar folder, I have 3 projects. But I want to show you something really quick. Create a project. Again, Rick mentioned you don't have to be a programmer to do this. You really don't. You just have to have an idea of what you want to do. And we also give you a lot of information to help you get started. And one thing is templates. So if you're looking to copy files, grab this template. Scroll down, there's a lot of database ones, database to Excel to PGP. If I keep on going, maybe you want to age out files, which we do recommend. Running some native commands, we can call programs even. Keep on going, merging files, moving files around, renaming files, etc. Right? A lot of great examples. But let me do have one here, SFTP. Give it a better name than this, but SFTP, push to partner, etc. But hit save. I just want to show you really quickly, it's that simple to get started. Now you're in design. And like Rick said earlier too, right? You're gonna get these parameters, just fill in the values of them, right? We're giving the parameters laid out here, just like you do today in CL. So you just fill it in, click to a partner, push some files, and I have air handling built into it, something we strongly recommend. If by chance you're not sure how to fill this in, SFTP, look to the right of it, there's a question mark. Click on it. There's some awesome help built into GoAnywhere. It'll define exactly what you're looking at. It may even give you some screenshots and maybe some examples as well with more information. So again, that's all built into GoAnywhere. All right, let me just run a few more for you really quickly. Just based on some conversations I've had out there, really quickly here, copy some files, rename them, PGP encrypt them, right? You can kind of read through it, right? These are very descriptive. You can edit that, make it make sense to you. I'm gonna execute it really quick, run it. And by the way, you can run through debug mode and all that just to kick in with the applications. Blue is good. View the job log. I want to show you this here because it's very nicely detailed information right away. 10 files copied. I'm just gonna hit the big stuff here. 10 files renamed. So if you look closely, they got these data in it. If I keep on going, 10 files are encrypted. And I keep on going, 10 files are uploaded. So again, nice tracking what's going on here. I also even summarize inside the job log another step that I would normally take, or that you could take. If you transfer, in this case, 10 files successfully to your partner, you could automatically turn on and delete the source files, delete just those 10 files. These are my test files, so I don't want to delete them, but it's also a great way to debug it or just to test it. I list every file that would have been deleted if I would have enabled this step here, this task, but I didn't want to do that. Get really easy there. I know we're getting close in time. Move files to all agents. So again, think about agents on different partitions, different servers, different Windows servers, Linux servers, whatever it is. Agent is connected to IBM or to GoAnywhere, excuse me. I can execute it, run it, and this is doing a group push. And I have 2 agents, I believe, yeah. These are both going to different IBM servers, and I just push the file up to the IFS, just like that, both of them consistently. I have a customer that does this regularly with PTF packages. They push the PTF packages to the agent partitions, that way. Running native commands. So just very quickly, some of you guys might be a customer of ours using our robot schedule or other robot solutions. So here I'm running a robot job, 2 of them, in fact. If I execute it, run it, let's see if I still have my screen up, if it didn't time out. So let's try this again. There we go. Completion history. There's one already, one's job done. So again, I'm able to run robot jobs and all that, or call your own CL programs and different things like that. So again, you have the capability to integrate. The last one I want to show you is back over here, just to show that capability. I know again, I'm trying to get done with this quickly here. I have, this one's on a Windows server, but if I go to workflow projects, I can actually get connect up to the DB2 servers. I got 2 different files I'm going to access and grab, that is, join them together. So I got a nice SQL select join, excuse me, inner join. And I do some fun stuff with the job logs just to show it to you. But I'm able to grab that information and eventually send it out to my partner, right? I'm able to grab the file, encrypt the file, deliver the file, whatever you want to do. I should show you this, validate, high level compile, just obvious stuff, but execute. View job log. Again, I throw some stuff in here just to see it. File A has 23 records, 61 records, and file B joined together, they have 22. Information from the first file, the top half. Second file. What I'm doing here is joining on the states there, and I'm able to combine them together to give you the region number, the state, and the description of the state. So I have that resulting join from 2 different databases, and then I send out the door. Some great information there. Just to wrap things up on this side here, users logging in. If I have a user logging in, a web user, end user. Again, nothing that needs to be installed for this end user, right? They have access to the information out there. You could actually do a lot of different things. Let's see here. I wanted to show you one here today. Picture this. You or your colleagues, they need to share files with you, and you turn around and put them into the IFS. They don't have direct access to the IFS, right? There's not a log to connect up to that in mind. Well, through a secure form, I can authorize they can run this form, and guess what? They can actually grab those files and attach those documents that they need to upload to the IFS or whatever you just specify here, right? Have options, attach those files, and simply hit submit. And in this case, just one document will be uploaded to the IFS. And there's my confirmation on top. As a user, again, I don't have access to the IFS, but through that secure form, they do, right? It's a way to empower the end user. All right, I better stop talking there. I have to talk all day. So let me jump back to the PowerPoint to wrap things up for you guys. I believe we have a quick polling question coming up.
Yeah, thanks everybody for sticking with us to the end here. I will go ahead and launch this polling question, and that's just to have you let us know if we can help you in any way today. If you'd like a demo of GoAnywhere for you and your team, interested in a trial, have a question on something else, if you're an existing GoAnywhere customer and have a question, or if you're all set, I'll give a special shout out to the demo option here. If you want a little bit more one-on-one time with Heath, he's probably the guy you'd be talking to on that demo call. So if you do want to hear Heath speak more after today's presentation, that's the option for that. But I'll just leave this open for a couple more seconds here. Seeing a few more responses coming through. All right, thank you so much for answering that. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I'm afraid we don't have much time for Q&A, but if you are able to put your question in, we will follow up with you after the fact. So please do still do that. Or if you have a question, you can also probably put that in the post-webinar survey, and we'll get that information there too. But again, thank you so much for joining, sticking with us to the very end. Hopefully you found today's presentation helpful and learned some new things. We'd love to speak more with you, so please do reach out if we can be of any help. I hope everyone has a good rest of your day. And Heath and Rick, thank you so much for all the information you shared today.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.